Welcome to this, the fifth in a series of videos in which I, a board game enthusiast, try to reduce my board game collection by half. I will explain my thinking as I decide what I'm going to keep and what's got to go, and it might help you think about what you like in a board game. But why am I doing this? Well, I don't have enough time to play all of these games. I added up all of the play times of the board games in this collection and it adds up to 84 hours. Now, is 84 hours a big number? Well, I don't know, but surely the number of board games that you own should be in proportion to how much time you spend playing board games. And for me personally, I've just had a lot less time to play board games recently. And for that reason, I need to cut down the collection a bit. But speaking about the time it takes to play a board game, today I want to talk about some games that can cause players to take a lot of time to take their turn. Board gamers talk about analysis paralysis, which means players are paralyzed because they are analyzing what they're going to do on their turn. And that's why it takes them so long to take a turn, which can be quite a frustrating experience. And so I'm going to talk about two games that I have found to cause analysis paralysis, and that is Arkwright and Trismegistus. Now, this is not the case with the Voyages of Marco Polo, but I'm going to use the Voyages of Marco Polo to illustrate my point. But let me say first that the Voyages of Marco Polo is one of my all-time favorite games. This game is absolutely terrific. What I love about it is at the start of the game, there are these cards that are dished out in the locations across the board, and they're really significant, but they're there for everybody to see, and it's up to you to sort of stitch together a route across Asia, and you want to try and go to the right places that will give you the right options to sort of maximize your score. Also, it has these really high-powered character abilities, which are always like really interesting to play. And in the Voyages of Marco Polo, there isn't a lot of analysis paralysis because on your turn you really just have one main action. Now, there are other things you can do on your turn. These are called bonus actions, but they all pertain to the main action. The main action in this game is you take some of your dice and you place them somewhere on the board to get resources or points. And the bonus actions are something like re-rolling some of the dice before you do that, or modifying the dice. So, but on your turn, you really just have one main decision to make, and that's what players can focus on, and that's what means the game just keeps flowing. And in Trismegistus, it's the same basic idea. On your turn, you have one main action, and then you also have these optional free actions or bonus actions, right? And in the case of both games, the Voyages of Marco Polo and Trismegistus, you can do as many of these like bonus actions as you want. But whereas in the Voyages of Marco Polo, the bonus actions are just sort of about helping you do your main action. In Trismegistus, the bonus actions and free actions, they're like just as powerful as the main action and just as significant. In Trismegistus, you are also using a dice for your main action. You have this dice, you move it down a track, spending its potency to do different actions as you search for the ultimate formula. An example of a main action might be to do a transmutation. You are converting lead into gold through a sequence of different elements. You could be doing a transmutation for your main action of, say, copper into tin. But as well as doing a transmutation for your main action, you could do one of these bonus actions. For example, complete an experiment. But whenever you complete an experiment, that might result in you doing another transmutation or more. And the thing about completing an experiment is that allows you to unlock a formula, which may spark off more bonus actions. And after you have unlocked a formula, you can at any time, this turn, maybe a future turn, you can flip over the formula, which is called sampling it, and that will produce more actions. And you see this is all optional. That's my point. You might have more formulas lined up from previous turns. So really what's happening here is on your turn you have one main action, but then you have this option of doing potentially like 6 or 7 more main actions. Can you see how that can be rather overwhelming? And the issue is that how open it is. You always have the choice of doing these actions or not. And what happened to me was when I was playing with a friend, my friend was taking at least 20 minutes each turn to consider all of these possibilities. I honestly think it was more like 30 minutes per turn. And for me, that was not just fun, and the game really just fell apart for me. This sort of looseness and openness on your turn where you could do one thing or 10 things. I remember like considering buying this game, the reviewers kept talking about explosive turns and big combos. So I've now made a mental note. Whenever I hear that, that's going to raise a red flag in my mind. In Stefan Feld games, this really doesn't happen, and it's interesting to compare that because Trismegistus is a lot like a Stefan Feld game in many ways, but I got this sense that Stefan Feld would never make this mistake. Arkwright is another game which my game group struggled with in terms of analysis paralysis for quite a different reason, I think. Arkwright is such a cool thematic game about the Industrial Revolution. Here's this large job market. Whenever you hire people out of the job market into your factory, then what happens is they have more disposable income, and that's going to create more demand for goods. So yeah, the game Arkwright, it really does model this economy in a way that's really quite cool. And what you are trying to do is you are focusing on meeting the demand for those goods. And how you do that is to, first of all, be producing the goods with your factories. And you can do that by hiring workers, but also firing them and replacing them with machines. But producing the goods is not enough. Then you also have to make sure your goods are appealing enough. And appeal is a key idea in a game of Arkwright. And what does the appeal of your goods depend on? It depends on the quality of your goods. It depends on the price of your goods. And the appeal also depends on whether you've done any advertising or distribution, it's called. Who needs quality goods whenever you can just pump up the advertising, right? For example, let's have a look at the production and sale of bread. Here we have the demand for bread. Here we have the appeal tracks, and this is the appeal for bread. And green player has the most appealing bread. And the way this works is we start here at the top where the most appealing player is, and we say green is going to meet the demand for one sale, which is great for them. Then we push this down to the next step on the track, and we start here again, and we say green has got the most appealing goods, one for them, and yellow has got the second most, and they're going to get a second one. And then we move the marker down here, but we start from the top again. Green has the most appealing goods, and yellow is going to be second again. And this means blue and red aren't going to meet any demand. They're not going to sell any bread. This element of the design of Arkwright is absolutely brilliant, right? Because it means that it's so important what is the appeal of your goods in relation to everybody else's goods, but all players can then have got these levers to pull to do with the quality, the advertising, and the price. For example, I could just suddenly pull this lever, drop my prices, suddenly my appeal rockets up for my goods, and then I will meet all of the demand and leave the other players with nothing. And that's the sort of strategy and cutthroat strategy that I love in a strategy board game, and Arkwright has that in spades. But that means that all the time as players adjust their prices, their quality, or their advertising, that will change their appeal, and everybody's always doing this calculation whether they're going to get the goods or not. So everyone's looking over at the appeal track thinking, right, what does that mean? That means 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 1, 2, 3, and doing this calculation to see what goods are going to get, which really slows down the game. It feels to me like if I had somebody keeping score and doing a score track for everybody on a whiteboard or something, then this game would be absolutely perfect. And now it's time for me to decide which games to keep and which games to let go. With Arkwright, right, how are you supposed to get a game like that played? The teach is gigantic. it's got these development tiles. The way they influence the game is really significant, really fascinating, and absolutely love it. But each development tile has got like a paragraph in the rules, and you kind of need to know what they all do before you start the game. So yeah, the teach is massive. The only way to play it would be to have a group committed to playing it over like 4 or 5 times over 6 months or something. And I would love to do that, but it's not my circumstances, so I'm gonna let it go, as well as because of the analysis paralysis issue. And also the same is true for Trismegistus. I've got to say to you that if analysis paralysis is not an issue for you, then both of these games could be up. You might absolutely love them. And as for the Voyages of Marco Polo, great thing about that game is it's a weeknight strategy game. You could play this in under 2 hours with the group if everybody knew the rules, which makes it really valuable. However, I've been playing Marco Polo 2 on Board Game Arena a lot recently, and I think I enjoy it more because it's got even more depth of strategy to it. Not inclined to buy it as I've been playing it online a bit recently though. However, I would always be up for a game of that. Well, now it's time to check my progress towards keeping fewer than half of the board games in my collection. So far, I have failed to reach my goal or be on target because I've kept more than half of the games that I've looked at so far. But now, because I'm getting rid of these 3 big boxes, it puts me right back on target, and I'm keeping just 45% of the games I've looked at so far, which is great. However, next time I'm going to look at board games that my wife and I enjoy playing together, so it's going to be hard getting rid of them surely. And also I'm going to look at some social and party games that I enjoy and have kept in my collection for years. Join me for that video. Thanks for watching this video. I'll see you in the next one.